Hello everyone, I'm Tousi and I'm here today with Mike Gray. I'm one of the most popular presenters at Talk Radio. So we're going to talk about a few issues including the age of new media, mainstream media, fake news and how it's affecting politics. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you very much indeed. I'm very well. It's lovely to be sitting outside here in this beautiful, warm, autumnal weather.
It is great weather actually.
They used to call it an Indian summer. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that anymore.
Yeah, I think these days you might trigger someone too. But so yeah, you do obviously Talk Radio. I've come on your show a couple of times,
Yep.
and well, actually quite often these days. And
We'd like to get you on because the thing about what we see now is the convoluted difference of different types of media. And you're on YouTube, we're on the radio, sort of an old-fashioned media, but changing all the time because we're now using a lot more video. We're down in Westminster quite a bit on the green there whenever there's Parliament, whenever it comes back, whenever that is. And there are so many now different messages on different mediums. My previous life was as a journalist working for newspapers up until about 2007.
Right.
But social media and the new forms of communication from political parties to the people and to us as well has changed like dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a point about there was a time when people got their information through just newspapers, and then it went to the kind of radio initially, and then went to TV, then internet, then radio came back. But now, because people don't read anymore properly, and people don't even watch the news properly, there's a problem where people just get their news from memes and headlines.
Yes.
And how's that affecting politics and people's opinions?
I think it's affecting politics massively in the same way that it's affecting almost everything else. Everybody has an instant view on everything now. So that you don't actually read to the end of the article and then form your own opinion. You see a headline, you see a tweet, you see a little short video, and you like it, and you go, "Oh, that's good." Boris Johnson promises 20,000 more police officers, but you don't then get people saying, "Oh, but hang on, didn't he take 20,000 police officers away?" Or somebody did. You only have to get that from the opposite side, because now everything's so polarised that you get people who will hate anything Boris Johnson does, even if he's giving away free money. But he's a liar. But he's this, he's that, So political opinions seem to be now being formed and not really changed. So you've either got one opinion which you stay with forever. Very few people, it seems to me, apart from those liberal Tories who like to swap around, want to change their view on anything.
No, you're right, and I think that there's a fear of complacency as well when your base and your audience have already formed an opinion and they're already on your side, so you feel like they're on your side, and so that you become complacent. That's what I'm trying to avoid myself.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes I even criticise the Conservative Party. So
Sure.
I'm not like just criticising Labour or Remainers.
I think that's important, particularly for people like yourself, and also for me, because my audience would be perceived to be generally a Leave voting audience, because we're up against somebody whose name we never mention, who talks an awful lot about the Remain side of the argument. And in fact, I'm trying, with some difficulty always, to be straight down the middle, because people actually will pick you up on things if you say something which they think is in some way on the other side, and in fact you're just going down the middle.
But I guess that's the thing. So when it comes to confirming your own biases and become complacent because of your base, there are certain other kind of radio stations and shows that's happened to them, because most of the people who watch it and call in are basically on their side. It puts off the others.
Yes.
So they've basically leave to look for a new place, basically a new show and a new radio station.
And I think that's the problem at the moment with every outlet almost. I mean, newspapers have always been famously, one-sided in terms of elections. I remember when I was working for the Mirror, I was running the Welsh edition of the Mirror. And Anglesey at the time was a dangerous place for the Plaid Cymru lot. And so the Welsh Labour Party really needed to win Anglesey to keep, Wales Labour, basically. We put in a front page basically saying vote Labour. I mean, that was what we put into Anglesey. The whole front page was basically why you should vote Labour. And of course Labour won. The Plaid Cymru people then reported us to the Electoral Commission, who ruled that there was nothing wrong. And I was like, well, that's great. Now, of course, in broadcasting, one of the things that, in a way, we dread is if they go to an election, we then have this kind of purdah period where we have to actually, yes, of course, we have to be as balanced as we can be in anyway, but during a purdah period, you have to absolutely take notes. If you take one call from somebody who wants to remain in the European Union, you have to take another call from somebody who wants to leave. If you take an MP from a particular constituency on, you have to put every other MP from that constituency on, so there are rules. But outside of that, it seems to me that an awful lot of journalists have forgotten that they're journalists and they've become activists instead.
I mean, there is always a need for the regulation and overseeing the kind of outlets.
But it seems it doesn't apply fairly though, because it doesn't apply to newspapers.
But that's the thing. So what do you, apart from obviously the fact that it exists and it's fine to an extent to have that balance, but what's your opinion on the kind of Ofcom? And sometimes could it go too far or make the wrong decision?
I think it's very difficult for Ofcom because now they're basically looking after they're looking after TV and radio effectively, when there are so many other things out there. When you've got Boris Johnson
YouTube.
Directly tweeting, well, you've got YouTube for a start. You've got Boris Johnson directly tweeting to his followers. You've got Facebook adverts coming out all over the place. It seems to me that we are. The problem I think with Ofcom is that they're necessary and there should be regulations, but it's analog regulation. We're a digital age, and we say that a lot now.
And that's the fear. I mean, whilst I agree because it has been unfair in terms of the level playing field when it comes to social media, news outlets, and radio and TV. But at the same time, my fear, and this is why I'm always skeptical towards politicians and bureaucrats, is that if we give them power to fix this problem, what they're going to do is basically they're going to create in a worse scenario where the whole internet will be monitored, the whole kind of YouTube and Twitter, where you can't even tweet anything.
No, exactly.
A lot of things you tweet, you can't anymore.
And there is a fine line to be drawn. I mean, a lot of people have said that YouTube has become quite much more regulated now than it used to be in the early days. And we saw, during the time of Tom Watson's kind of crusade against newspapers, that he was very much a man who wanted to see tighter regulation, and it then turns out that he's receiving money from a guy who sued the News of the World. And you go, well, really? Is that the way we want this to be done? I think it needs to be independently run. There does need to be regulation, and you do need to be able to tell people, that some of this stuff might actually be biased. However, it really should be done. I've always believed it should be done by the industry rather than by politicians.
No, absolutely. Obviously, independent body, but related to the industry rather than appointed by bureaucrats. I absolutely agree. Who's been the most annoying person or people that you've interviewed? Oh, you had to do wait.
Well, I've had some interesting scenarios. My most recent kind of
Femi.
Femi I don't really count as anything other than a sort of stupid boy. Really. The problem with Femi is that he has one line which he trots out, which is that I studied EU law, which of course he did, but he didn't actually graduate in studying EU law.
It's like Gina Miller.
And he effectively worked as a paralegal in an office. He wasn't a lawyer. And I'm afraid, I gave him a going over, which has been famously watched hundreds of thousands of times on social media and on YouTube. Partly because he's such a pain in the arse, and he came in and insisted on coming into the office. And I'd said to the producer on the day, I really don't like people just telling me they're coming into the office. It's up to me to invite them. But he just turns up, and like when we're in Westminster, he sort of hangs around. And hopes that if he hangs around for long enough, people will put him on.
Maybe I should use his method.
Well, I mean, it works for him, but he only ever says the same thing. More importantly, I suppose, I would count the encounters I've had with MPs. Famously, Stephen Doughty, the Labour MP, who came on my show one time and promised me that he had had thousands upon thousands of emails from people saying that they had voted to leave, but now they wanted to remain.
Millions and billions.
And I just said, well, let's see him. And he accused me of calling him a liar. So I'm not calling you a liar. I just don't think you're telling me the truth. And of course since then he hasn't produced the emails. He's blocked me on Twitter, and he doesn't speak to me at all, which is fine with me. Ed Vaizey, just to prove that I do it to Tories as well, he got very upset when I called him arrogant the day after he'd voted to give power away from his own government and over to the Labour Party, and said, don't you realise that you've now put us in this horrible situation where Europe has now got control of the agenda? And don't you think you're arrogant? And he really didn't like it. He didn't walk out on me, but as soon as the interview was over, he just got up and stormed off.
Well, in your defence, you didn't call him that. You just asked, "Do you think you're arrogant?"
Yeah,
it's just a question.
Well, it was just a question, and that one sort of went rather well. Lisa Nandy, most recently, was quite good. She was trying to convince me that somehow the 3 times that the deal had been voted down, it wasn't actually a deal. And it turned out that was a kind of a Labour line that day, that some other Labour MPs were trotting out saying, "Oh yeah, but it's actually not a deal. It's just the withdrawal agreement." It's like, well, it's a deal. It's what we call a deal. And there have been others who famously have sort of crossed swords with me and have not come out terribly well. Sometimes though, you get ones who are much more kind of grown up about it.
Right.
And we had Charlie Faulkner on, the former Lord Chancellor, who, very much like Alistair Campbell, you can have a big row with them, and actually it's really relatively good natured at the end, and they move on, because that's the cut and thrust of politics. But what I hate are the people who take offence, the people who try and report me to my boss or complain about the way that they've been treated, and it's just like, man, you're in politics, grow up, get a reasonably thick skin. I had Michael Heseltine on once, and he was spouting the usual stuff that he
Yeah.
spouts. And I just said to him at one point, incorrect. And you should see the look on his face. Nobody's clearly ever said that to him. It's been so kind of presumptuous.
Since Thatcher.
No, exactly. So I love it though. I mean, it's great fun. I mean, it's one of my favourite things to do is to argue with people.
Yeah.
And
I've lost so many girlfriends.
Yeah, well, listen, me too. you want, but that's the only way you get to somebody, to get to the truth. I love rattling politicians' cages because so many of them come on prepared.
Yeah.
They've got their media
They
trainer.
try to fool you.
They say one thing, they mean something else. You know, I mean, like the other day, I had I think it was Tom Brake on for the Lib Dems, and I said to him, and he was talking about, you know, we've been calling for the reform of the EU for ages. I said, well, what will it be in the manifesto in the next election? He said, it's always been in our manifesto. I said, that's not the question I asked you.
Yeah.
I asked you if it's going to be in the next
Will
one.
it be? Yeah.
And he wouldn't answer, you know, so you really do, you have to be alert all the time and you have to stay on these guys. But I don't have anything against any of them.
No,
you know,
no.
I don't have a position. As I've said to people frequently, I didn't vote in the referendum.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't believe if you want to be a proper journalist.
Yeah.
And I don't insist everybody else does this. I
No,
just
no.
feel it's better if I don't vote.
No, you're right. I mean, speaking of kind of the talk radio and the whole kind of the outlet, what's the kind of division now? What's the kind of future looking like? Because you guys have had a kind of revamp over the last kind of couple of years, and especially these days with the social media. And I'm trying to basically, we are very, very close in terms of the subscribers.
Yeah.
You guys are on 73,000. I'm on 72,000.
Okay.
So I'm getting close, but
That's good. Well, that's brilliant. Well, we are at the moment always going to be the underdogs to some other more established news organisations, partly because we're newer, also because we're only on DAB. We're not on FM, which means that the growth is limited. But the growth is happening, you know, because more and more people are still listening. More and more people are now listening online. The online numbers are going absolutely crazy, bananas. A lot more people are coming to us, and also we haven't had an awful lot of advertising outside of the industry, so a lot of people still don't know we're here.
No, of course,
And the signal in some parts of the country is not perhaps as good as it needs to be. So we've still got plenty of growth, I think.
Of course. I mean, it's going quite well. I mean, I only hear really good things from obviously my kind of subscribers and I'm friends as well. The one thing I keep hearing, feedback, I don't know if you guys heard it, is that they keep saying, because they watch the clips on YouTube and everything, or sometimes live, but they always say if you guys also do the podcast, recorded the whole actual video rather than the actual audio.
Yeah.
Because people these days like to watch.
They do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my decision.
No,
all of these things get made way above my pay grade, as they say.
It's probably it's not easy because it's a big file. It's like 3-4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, some people think that the full show podcast is good. Well, you can listen to the whole show or listen again on the website if you really want to, which I know is not as easy. And it would be easier, I'm sure, for the producers to just put the whole thing out rather than have to edit it down. But we are moving towards that. I mean, we already now do. James Whale does a sort of a TV version of his radio show.
I was on his show last week.
Okay, so you're on it. So they do an hour which goes out live streaming. That's in its infancy, but that will do more of that. And I think I'm going to try and start doing some of that
That's
soon
pretty
as well.
good, actually.
So that will be interesting. And I think the future, perhaps. I mean, I know when this was just an off the cuff remark that was made, but when the deal was done to sell Sky, people started tweeting me saying there's room in Britain for a sort of Fox News style right-wing news station. Perhaps this is why Talk Radio has been started, because they've got all the gear, and we've got all the 4G. Or the high definition stuff, we can do it all.
Right. Yeah.
But when I went to the boss and said, "Is this the plan?" They went, "No, it's a good idea though."
It's a good idea. Didn't think about that.
So you never know.
I mean, it is needed in the space of media.
There are an awful lot. I mean, it's only really, I suppose, through Brexit that I've worked out, and I suppose I've always known it. But there's an awful lot of very privileged people working in the media in this country. You know? I mean, I'm a grammar school boy. Raised in a relatively humble household. I didn't go to public school, but the sheer numbers of people who went to public
majority still
school,
the BBC are still very Oxford educated.
And so are newspapers.
Private schools.
Most newspaper editors, I think, are educated privately. And there's an awful lot of that kind of establishment, not lefty kind of Remainy type stuff, but there's a lot of that.
Basically, kind of a collectivist.
They don't like upstarts like me.
Yeah, statist.
Yeah.
No, you're right. But no, I mean, it's great. And thanks for coming on the show, having a good chat.
Anytime. We'll see you back on Talk Radio at some point.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Good.